So I'm here in at Coney Island, and this is definitely a place where I have a lot of just happy memories. It's one of the few places where the memories are just happy. As a kid, my mother would bring me here during the summer from Memorial Day to Labor Day, and she'd be like, just go have some fun. We'd get a spot, bring an umbrella, bring some blankets, and it would just be a good time where I'd just be playing in the water all day. This is the place I kind of learned how to swim initially. And it is a place where I just felt really free to be a kid. Like I said, one of the few places. And it is just amazing how I just this place still makes me happy. Actually, any beach actually makes me happy, but this place especially just makes me happy. The sound of the waves is just peace bringing, and I don't know if it's because I'm a Pisces, but I'm sure that has something to do with it as well. But I would really just be frolicking on the beach, building sand castles, meeting other kids, playing with them, and it would be an all day thing. And by the time we left, I was exhausted and definitely got home and was sleeping it off. But I didn't go on too many rides. It wasn't mostly about the rides, it was mostly about the beach. And yeah, we'd go to Nathan's, get hot dogs, french fries, and that orangeade, because if you know, you know. And it was just a good time. And this is where I spent a lot of my summers. And even now, I still come here, I drive here, and it's just, especially now in the winter time, it's so peaceful. And looking at the sun hitting the water and the reflection and just the sound of the waves, it is so, it's so, it brings so much joy and peace into my life. And I am so happy I have this place, at least in New York City, to really say, yes, this was a happy place. And this is one of the things I appreciated about my childhood. So right now we're in front of the first place I remember living as a child. This is 44 Lefferts Place. It's on the border of Bed-Stuy and Clinton Hill, and my bedroom was right here. Third floor apartment, that was my bedroom. Um, One of the things I remember about this place is it's the first place I remember, but it's also the place I know where things were horrible for me. They were horrible for my life. I remember it was the first place I remember getting beatings and just being in a really bad situation. My mother had met a guy. His name is John. He's very tall, and he was a violent person. And he came into our lives, and he put his violence on us. And he would hit me. I would get beat for anything and everything, just breathing too loudly. And, I got hit with belts, obviously, and I got hit with parts of a Christmas tree one time. I got hit with electrical switches. I got electric, cable extension cords. I got hit with a 2x4 once in the upper buttocks area. I got beat with everything, and then he would do the same to her. And it was horrible. And I remember, I will post a link to that video because it's on my other channel. Something happened, and I'm not going to get into it here, but I went to take action that would have been very, very bad. And because I was tired of getting beat all the time, and it was a place where I was sad. I had no safe place. I had no one really seemed to care about me, and it was just a horrible situation, and I just really wanted to die at all times. I wanted to run away. I wanted to just be gone. I didn't want to be in the situation anymore. And I was really angry at my mother, I remember, because she brought this man into our lives. So, I also remember here being where I got a lot of gifts as a kid. Um, I, my mother would always buy things for me. She was big on buying gifts and showing off to others that, oh, I got my daughter this and that. I was one of the first kids who had a computer. I am old, so my computer was a Commodore 64, and I was one of the first people to get one of those. I also had an Atari. I was also into books. I remember really books being my escape from all of the terrible things that were happening. And so, this is definitely a place that really affected my mental, because I had no safe place to go. Home is supposed to be where you will feel safest, and I wasn't safe here at all. Hello, hello, hello. We are at the first school I ever went to, and that is back here on Hoyt and Sackett Street. It is St. Agnes Catholic School here in Carroll Gardens. This is the school that I really realized that Catholic schools suck. I was here from my first, I think, until third grade. I don't remember exactly. I don't remember much about my time except how much I hated it. I hated the restriction. I hated the idea that I couldn't be who I was. I hated how strict it was, and back then Catholic schools were very strict. We were only allowed to use the bathroom once per day, and if you had to go a second time, you'd have to go and get into trouble. I remember one time they wouldn't let me use the bathroom. I had already used the bathroom. I had to really go really bad. They wouldn't let me go. So with my rebelliousness, they wouldn't let me go. So I just pulled down my underwear and not my skirt, because I had a skirt on. You go to Catholic school, you wear those skirts. I put my other underwear down and I went right in the classroom. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Didn't appreciate that. They did not appreciate that at all. And I got into a lot of trouble. I got rulered. And what they would do is, they don't use a paddle. I don't think they use a paddle. I think they used a ruler, and they would hit you on your hands when you did things like that. And of course, that was one of the times I think that was the second time I got into big trouble in the school, and that's the time that my mother took me out of that school, because it was just not for me. The first time I got into trouble was when they tried to overcorrect my writing. Let me explain. In Catholicism, you are supposed to be the right hand of God, so you are not supposed to write with your left hand. I was, at the time, ambidextrous. I could use both. Not to equally exactly, but I could use both. So I enjoyed writing with both hands. The nuns would correct me when I wrote with my left hand with the ruler. You can't use your left hand, use your right hand. And so, of course, again, I'm rebellious. So I would write with my left hand more and more and more. So this is where I really learned that Catholicism does not allow you to be who you are, and I wanted no part of it. Even back then, I was in first grade to third grade, wanted no part of it. And that continued on very much to life, throughout my life. Even now, I don't practice any formal religion, so to speak. So, yeah, this is where it all started. All the BS. This is where it all started. So we are now at PS 11. You see it right here. This is my elementary school. I went here from, I believe, the third grade to the sixth grade. This was obviously my second school that I went to. And it was, nothing spectacular happened here, nothing major. I know from my memory that I started my love of books in the school. I was an avid reader. By the time I was 12, I was reading Dostoevsky and Tolstoy and reading War and Peace, things like that. The only thing I do remember that happened here was there was a day when I think it was late spring. We were all out in the yard, and there was no real teachers watching us. We were out for a break. I think it was probably lunch break or whatever. And I believe I was in the fifth or sixth grade at this point. And what I do remember is that we were out playing in the yard, which is right there. And the boys started ganging up on some of the girls. You know how boys do. And I don't know how it happened, but I remember having my shirt pulled off at some point. And I'm sitting in the yard with my shirt off. I had a bra on, thankfully at that age, I had a bra on, thankfully. And so all the girls started jumping the boys. All the girls jumped in, started jumping the boys, trying to get my shirt back. I'm not sure what happened exactly, but I do remember that specific moment. It was in the yard over there, and it's funny that that's what I remember, and that's pretty much all I remember. I don't remember any teachers, anything like that. My memory isn't the greatest. It's never been the greatest, but yeah, it's very interesting that that's what I remember. And the fact that that's the worst thing that I remember, I guess is a good thing. So we're back in another section of Brooklyn. We are definitely in Fort Greene now. We are below Myrtle, and I am standing in front of one of my other places that I live. This is right here, is 110 Adelphi Street. I lived here, I believe it was on the third floor in this apartment right here. It is a 4-story building. As you can see, there's another floor above it. This building right here was abandoned when I lived here. It was dead. There was nothing in it. And what I used to do, I would go up to our roof here, cross over to that building, and I would go down and explore the building. There was nothing in it. It was decaying. You had to watch where you were walking because there were holes in the floor. Yes, I could have died, but I definitely remember exploring this building here, up and bottom. That is a 5-story building, and you can go all the way in the bottom. Now, what you can't see here is that there's a space in the back between the two buildings where the back windows of each apartment can look into that space. And I remember one time I went up to the roof and I was crossing over, and I looked over and I could see the neighbors' kids. One of them I think was slightly older than me, and I think one of them was younger, but they were home, and I looked down and I could see them. And I waved to them, and then I went and did my business. And so apparently they told their mom, and their mom told my mom, and they tried to get me into trouble. And so I just told my mom, why would I do that? I'm terrified of heights. I am, but it's only 4 to 5 stories. I wasn't that scared back then. When you're young, you don't have that many fears. And so they definitely tried to get me into trouble. I was able to lie my way out of it because, young people. I believe I lived here from the time I was around 11 till I was 15, and I know we left when I was 15. So there are very performative and important years to my life. I do remember the beating slowing down quite a bit. Um, at some point, we lived here, and my mother, the guy she had married, John, they finally quit and he moved out. So the violence in the house definitely dropped significantly. My mother did take on some of that behavior, but it wasn't as extreme and it wasn't as often. But I remember being on this block. Back then, it was a much more aggressively, it was a bad neighborhood. Fort Greene was not good then. This block in particular wasn't that bad, but once you went up to Myrtle, which is the next block, it was not good. And there used to be drug dealers all around. And they used to have the little kids be like, hey, yo, drop this bag off over there. I'll give you $1. I did that a couple times. Not knowing really what was going on. They was like, oh, you want me to help you? Sure, no problem. It wasn't until later that I realized I was probably transporting drugs. But it was, I only did it like 2 or 3 times. And then I went to, I was at this time mostly going to Satellite West junior high school. It's a a specialized school for intelligent children, for exceptional children. And there's nothing of note in this neighborhood, but I know living here that things tend to calm down when we lived here. My mother took me out of the house. And I don't remember where we were, but we were somewhere over here. We might have gone to this park. It's right here. It's a playground for this school. There's a school right in front of me that you can't see. I don't even know. Oh, it's Fort Greene Prep Academy. I don't even know. But I remember being over here, and she sat me down and told me that the person I knew as my father was actually not my father. And that my father, at age 13, this happened, my father had passed away. I didn't know what to do with that information at that time. I was sad that I had a dad, an actual dad, that passed away, and that the person who I thought was my father was a relative of his. So I don't know. Having a dad was never something I cared about, because obviously the person I did have in my life as a stepfather was very abusive. So having a dad in my life at that time, I wasn't really caring about, I wasn't striving for, I wasn't missing out on. At least at that age, I didn't think I was missing out on. So that's the only thing that happened during this time that I lived here that really kind of was like, wow, that's really messed up. That you go up to this age, up to age 13, and you're telling me that my father, who the person I thought was my father, is not my father, and that my real father is dead. Come to find out, he was married to someone else. So that's why I didn't really get to know him very well. Drama. So now we're standing outside of PS 307, which used to house Satellite West Junior High School. I don't know if it does anymore. There's no signs. They say Satellite West. Even though if you still type in Google, it still shows this address. I don't know. But it used to be in this school, and this is where I went to middle school. It's, like I said, it's a specialized junior high school for kids who are top of their class in public school. So I went here, and here was a very interesting thing. There was a couple of boys, one in particular I remember, who bothered me all the time. He used to make fun of me, take my hat off, and things like that. So I remember one day, this boy that had liked me, or was bothering me, but he liked me. He told me he liked me. I was not interested in him. So he became much more aggressive. And one day on the bus home, he kicked me and I fell out the back of the bus. Well, this started a whole thing because there were girls on the bus and boys on the bus from my school. And so all the kids wound up getting on the bus, and there was a fight between the boys and the girls because the girls were like, nah, you're not treating another girl like that. And the boys were like, yo, this is our boy. So those are a couple things that happened here. As you can see by where I'm going with this, I was being mistreated at school in addition to being mistreated at home. So remember I said in the beginning I had no safe space? I really had no safe space because I was just being taunted in every way. I was on my way home one day. I was walking up to my house and some girl jumped me from behind. I forgot. She was someone I knew who I knew didn't like me in school, but she jumped me from behind. The problem with that is that I had a protractor in my hand as I was walking home. And so what happened was when she jumped on my back, I swung at her because I didn't know what was going on. All I know is that someone jumped on my back. So I swung, and with the point of the protractor, I sliced open her face. It wasn't even intentional. But at that point, when people found out what I did, no one bothered me ever again. Ever. They decided that I was crazy and I was violent and I would slice a bitch at the young age of 13. That wasn't the case. It just was a reaction to try to get whoever was on me off. But I guess it did its job because at that point, no one ever bothered me again. That boy didn't bother me again. Girls didn't bother me again. Actually, at that point, no one was messing with me at all because they thought I was nuts. That's when I learned being crazy, being seen as crazy, really got people to not mess with you anymore. So that turned out to be a good thing. I kind of carried on to high school. Speaking of, I went to Brooklyn Tech High School. I tested well enough for it. I was really smart. I got in there, and that's where we're going next. Alrighty then, we have hit the last public school I went to in New York City, and this is Brooklyn Tech High School. And you can see the difference in size of schools that I went to. This is a specialized high school. When I attended back in 1989 to 1993, it was the #3 high school in the city. You had to test to get in here. And yeah, that was my situation. I am standing in Fort Greene Park, which is across the street from the school. And especially as someone who was a civil engineering major, yes, we had majors in this high school. I spent a lot of time surveying and doing civil engineering things in this park. This is the school that I think had the most influence on my life at this point. This is where I found my love for music, like a lot of popular music, not just the stuff that my mother was listening to, but I really fell into my own with music. I listened to heavy metal music. I was into Metallica and Guns N' Roses and Skid Row and Faith No More. I also listened to Biggie and Jay-Z. So yeah, this is where I really hit my stride in finding out who I was and exploring different things. I had my first boyfriend here, Dennis, what up? At this point, I was very much broken as a kid. My mother, the abuse I had been going through, really after, oh my God, I'm just realizing there is a giant hawk in front of me. You know, I was a bit of a troublemaker because, like I said before, I was broken. The physical violence had dropped a lot, but the the emotional abuse started. My mother was saying things that were terrible, things you never say to your child. Um, and it was just really heartbreaking. And to know that your parent doesn't love you and wishes you had never been born, her words, not mine, um, it's heartbreaking. And so by the time I got to high school, I was really messed up. Emotionally, I was battling something. I don't know what exactly, but I was trying to overcome this feeling of mm, poor self-worth. I had no confidence. I didn't believe I should even be here. The only parent I had was just wanted nothing to do with me, wished I wasn't here, wished she'd had an abortion. Oh, here it goes again. It's the same one, just flying around. Tech, I had teachers, when you get to high school, the teachers aren't watching you as closely as they are when you're in elementary school or junior high school. So I was really, I was acting out here. By the time I went to school here, I was drinking. I had been previously sipping some of my stepfather's beer, and I was drinking. And when I first started it, I realized it made me feel lighter. It made things feel not so important. It made things feel just like it didn't really matter. So that feeling of things that were happening to me not mattering really took the edge off of what I was feeling, or at least allowed me to not think about it or focus on it. So by the time I got here, I would get to school at 8 a.m. already a little drunk because I could buy beer. Back then, young people could buy beer without being carded. And I could buy beer and I would have a beer or two before class. It was crazy because I would show up at my civil engineering class at 8 a.m. already like drunk, get in class, pop my feet up. I didn't do any of the work. I didn't care. There seemed to be no point in doing anything. Wasn't going to be anything. There didn't seem to be a point in school. And so I was acting out a lot. I was cursing at my teachers. I was so broken that I just didn't care. And it definitely showed in my grades. I was cutting class constantly. I got into this good school, and obviously I'm smart enough to do that. But I just emotionally was not able to handle it. So I just, I didn't take advantage of the fact that I was in this really good school. I had really good teachers, and a lot of them really cared about you too. And I just didn't care. So, um, yeah, I acted out a lot. Like I said, I cursed at my teachers. I had to go to summer school one year, and I caused a smoke condition using hairspray and a lighter. Yes, I did that. By the time 93 came, I did not have enough credits to graduate. And so I had to wind up getting my GED when all my other friends were graduating. Although still the school considers me an alumni, I guess because I was there the full 4 years. Um, and so yeah, it was a very tough time, not because of the school, but because of what was going on at home. We are at the last place that I lived as a minor, as a juvenile, as a minor, with my mother. We're at 414, excuse me, we're at 414 37th Street, and we're in Sunset Park. This is between 4th and 5th Avenue. I lived here in this place for the longest portion of my life. I loved this neighborhood. I was here from I was 15 till I was about 21. It was the hardest place for me personally living here. We lived right here. That's 414 37th Street. And we lived in that apartment. That would have been the living room right there. And living with my mother at this point was really hard because I'm going through high school and things with her are getting worse. Not the violence per se, but the emotional stuff. And so let me explain to you what life was like at this point. Like I said, I was 15 when we moved here. I loved the neighborhood. It was much better than being in Fort Greene. And what happened when we got here is my mother decided she wanted to be a foster parent because, she was such a great parent to me. She wanted to be a foster parent. So we got some foster kids. We got one, then a bunch of others. But we had the first one we got was with us the longest. His name was Anthony. We got him when he was like 6 weeks old, and he left when he was 3 years old. He went back to his mom. It was amazing to truly watch my mother try to pretend to be a parent. She really did not want or understand the responsibility of being a parent because the person who was wound up taking care of those kids was me. I was the one who was picking them up from school, taking them to daycare, changing their diapers, feeding them. She did nothing for them, period. She took them out, she showed them off, she bought them really nice things, but she never really parented them. So watching her fawn over these kids, buy them nice things, toys and everything like that, but never really take care of them and leaving that responsibility to me, now it just shows me what she really thought of me. She thinks of kids as general. They're it's like a purse, something to show off. It's not something that you really care for. But at this point in time, my relationship with my mother was just bad. It was really bad. She was lying, telling people I stole things. She told my grandmother that, and I don't understand the purpose. I don't know why she wanted people to hate me so much, but she'd make up these stories that Irene stole this, Irene's taking my money. Excuse me, what? What money? You don't have any money in the house. She wouldn't buy food for me. She said I ate too much. She would spend thousands of dollars on furniture, computers for me and stuff like that. All the stuff that was nice to have, but I didn't need. But food, she would be very restrictive of food. She would limit what she bought. At one point, I was sitting there eating sugar sandwiches, like white bread with sugar in it, because I was so hungry and there was nothing to eat in the house. And at some point, my mother decided to marry this man. He's Egyptian. Apparently, I think he paid her $10,000 so he could come to the country and become a citizen. And yeah, she had sold herself for money to another person so he could come into the country. And it's not a common thing that people did back then. I'm not sure they still do it now, but they did it back then a lot. A lot of things happened when he moved in, and I don't know if it was him or if it was her. I think it was her. I think he was kind of just chill and just wanted to work and make money and send back to Egypt. But she just became even worse. Like, she wanted part of my paycheck when I was working, which was fine. I didn't have an issue with that, but you can't take it all. She just really got to the point where she didn't want me around. She was moving. She was moving to a different area, Borough Park, actually, not too far from here, actually, just really maybe 6 or 7 blocks, really not that far from here. And she was moving and didn't tell me she was moving. So she told me she was moving, but she didn't tell me she was moving without me. So one day I came home and everything of theirs was gone and my stuff was still here and there was somebody else in the apartment. Yes, she moved without me and didn't tell me. So at that point, I didn't know what to do. I took out my stuff and I had a few dollars, so I put some of my stuff in storage. And that night, I had to call my grandmother. I said, your daughter left me without anything, left me without a place, without anything. She just dumped me on the street. And I am, I think at this point, 21. It's winter time. And she was like, well, you know, you can come and get some money, you can stay here the night. So I stayed there the night. I went, tried to find a place, couldn't find a place because I wasn't making enough money to support myself. I was working midnight to 8 a.m. I was going to college, but that wasn't working out because I was working midnight to 8. I was in school from 10 to 4. I didn't have the ability to even, I could barely stay awake for any given time. I was sleeping maybe 4 hours a day. It was just not something I could continue to do. And then I got another job where I was working at Midas for a while. So I wound up actually sleeping on the street, literally not on the street, but outside for like a week or so. I don't remember exactly how many days, but it was like that for a while. Then my grandmother was like, come stay with me, but she lived in a senior residence. I couldn't stay with her too long. And I was staying with her, but then it was a problem because people were saying, you know, you have a visitor staying with you. So I had to find something else to do. Then something happened. I wound up moving upstate, living with my friend for a while, and moved on. But this was the last place I lived with my mother. And it was the last time I spoke to her for a very long time.